Gamescom is a pretty exciting show. Okay, so it doesn't have the same pomp as E3 and Cologne in August is punishingly humid, but it's still a massive show full of tens of thousands of people. And video games. Now, aside from the whole humidity thing, no two Gamescoms are exactly alike, so, now Chris and Aoife have returned from their travels, here are 6 things we learned at this year's Gamescom. Number 1, conferences at Gamescom are not quite the same as conferences at E3.
The way publishers are approaching the idea of conferences appears to be changing across the games industry at the moment, but still, the livestream offering in Cologne this year was pretty lackluster. Most big publishers like Sony and Microsoft straight up didn't have a conference, while EA had, well, they had far too much of one. FIFA's FUT is enormously popular, of course, but do we really need more than an hour of painstaking chat about it? It was enough to break Martin, who was doing our live blog on the site, for crying out loud. Blizzard, meanwhile, ditched the big flashy conference they had last year in favour of a series of live streams. They opened with a live stream designed to tease all the other live streams, which was a bit meta, and yet it was still the best of the bunch. In fact...
Number 2, Blizzard had a really good show.
I spoke with pretty much all of the Blizzard teams at Gamescom this year, and you'll be able to see more of that over the next week or so, but man, I thought they had a really good show. Specifically, World of Warcraft, which is bringing back the incredibly popular Karazhan raid as a 5-man dungeon, and Overwatch with its gorgeous new map and Bastion-themed animated short. I played that new map, by the way, Eichenwald, and yeah, I think it's easily the best looking of Overwatch's roster so far. It's German, it's got a castle, and from what we've heard, has spent more time in development than any of the maps they've done in the past. As a result, it's absolutely full of detail you can't really get a proper feel for in just a couple of rounds, but from what I've seen so far, yeah, I'm impressed. Is it a good map? I don't know. Is it a very, very pretty map? Yes. Yes, it is.
Number 3, there are some really cool games coming up. The best thing about Gamescom is that there tend to be a lot more hands-on opportunities than at E3. Even when games aren't hands-on yet, publishers have had a couple of months of development time since E3, meaning we often get a more substantial look at things at Gamescom. And it turns out, there are some really cool games coming up. Tom got hands-on with Sea of Thieves, which looks really interesting even if we're not entirely sure what you do yet. Chris was surprised by how much he likes Star Citizen, and perhaps a little less surprised by how much he continues to enjoy both Cities Skylines and Planet Coaster, while Aoife was quite taken with Prey 2, and then found herself getting slightly emotional seeing the giant dinosaurs of Crytek's Robinson. And then, you know, there's FIFA FUT to look forward to, everybody. That said, not all the games shown at this year's Gamescom went down quite so well, which leads us neatly on to number 4. Metal Gear is going in a bold new direction, and people aren't happy about it.
We all knew that the first Metal Gear game to be announced after Kojima parted ways with Konami was always going to be a divisive event. But wow, I'm really not sure anyone saw this coming. Metal Gear Survive is a 4-player co-op survival game with zombies? The internet rather predictably and kind of understandably exploded with comments like this, which is sort of poetic in its own vitriolic punctuation-free way.
Number 5, Gamescom is both awful and brilliant for Pokemon Go players.
If you've never been to Gamescom before, it's held in a massive place called the Kolmesse, a venue with gigantic exhibition halls, many escalators, and thoroughly woeful air conditioning. It's also, rather unfortunately, devoid of Pokestops, making it pretty rubbish for Pokemon Go. Not that anyone gets any phone signal once they get into the halls anyway. On the more positive side, Gamescom has the significant advantage of being held in Cologne, which has a historic point of interest every couple of feet. And where there are historical points of interest, there are Pokestops, and thus Pokemon. Huh, swings and roundabouts.
Number 6, there's a bar in Cologne with robot musicians, and it's perfectly terrifying. Cologne has a pretty decent nightlife, mainly based around eating pork knuckle and quaffing inadvisable quantities of Kolsch, a delicious local beer. You need to keep your wits about you while on the town in Cologne, however, on the off chance you end up in this bar with its terrifying robot Umpar band. Just imagine working there, every single night, just try and imagine that for a second. Terrifying. Anyway, those were the 6 things we learned at Gamescom this year. If you learned anything particularly interesting this week, whether Gamescom related or not, feel free to let us know in the comments. And if you want to check out some of our other videos from this year's Gamescom, there are some floating on the screen right now. Click one, why not? Either way, thanks for watching.